The thrill of the calculated consequence, the silence in the house was absolute, thick, and perfectly tailored to my mood. 2 days. 2 days of watching them scramble to finalize details for the $14,000 trip. A trip they had planned with increasing exclusivity, making it clear that my presence was an afterthought, a burden. Then the passport, the text thread, the casual, celebratory cruelty that confirmed what I had known all along. I was collateral damage in their perfect, expensive narrative. When I typed good, it wasn't resignation. It was confirmation. The loss of my passport hadn't been a tragedy. It had been the essential first domino. My presence here, grounded, was not a punishment, but a carefully secured vantage point. I sat motionless in the deep shadows of the sunroom, a space they rarely used, which offered a perfect line of sight to the main entrance. The house was no longer a home. It was a pressurized container of my design. I'd spent the last 2 hours not packing, but unmaking their preparations. I didn't steal their cash or their phones. That would be messy, traceable, childish. My work was surgical. First, the luggage. Their 4 meticulously packed high-end hard-shell suitcases, which had sat waiting by the door, were still there. But the electronic locks, synced to their phones and fingerprint IDs, were now inert. I had used a tiny, custom-built magnet and a simple script to corrupt the lock firmware. They would open them eventually with a lot of force, but not in time for the airport dash. Second, the documents. The emergency copies, the hotel confirmations, the printed boarding passes, the travel insurance binders. I hadn't destroyed them. I had simply moved them. Each crucial stack of paper was placed inside a different, locked, small fire safe, purchased yesterday, and bolted to the inside of the utility closet wall. The keys to the safes were in my pocket. Third, and most importantly, the logistics. The airport car service confirmation had been silently canceled an hour ago. The Uber app on Mom's secondary travel tablet, the one she always defaulted to, had been logged out, and the password reset to a complicated, uncrackable string. They wouldn't drive themselves because they'd already celebrated too much with a pre-trip bottle of champagne. They were reliant on the prearranged ride. The sound of the SUV pulling into the driveway was the opening curtain. The tires crunched on the gravel, a sound of mundane, oblivious arrival. The slamming of the car doors, followed by the clatter of the trunk opening, felt like a thunder roll promising a storm. I listened to the front door lock click 3 times as Mom tried to open it. She always double-checked that lock, a ritual of neurosis. This time, however, the lock was not defeated by habit. It was defeated by my precision. Are you kidding me? Did you lock the deadbolt too? Mom's voice was sharp, laced with the frantic edge of a schedule slipping away. My sister Maya laughed. Oh, he's probably just sulking. He's home, right? Hey, crybaby, open up. I stood slowly, my movements silent against the soft Berber carpet. My hands felt cold, steady, capable. I let them rattle the door for a full minute, imagining the slow, acid realization blooming in their chests. They were standing on the wrong side of a very expensive barrier, and they didn't even know it yet. Finally, I spoke. My voice, amplified slightly by the natural echo of the hallway, was calm and utterly devoid of emotion. The key is on the sill above the garage door, I said, a beat of silence. Maya scoffed. You absolute child. I heard the quick footsteps as one of them retrieved it, and the distinct sound of the key turning in the lock. They spilled into the entryway, immediately shedding their expensive coats and tossing their travel bags onto the pristine marble floor. They stopped short. The house was not dark. The main chandelier was on, but the usual rush of domestic energy was absent. Everything felt staged. What is this, a wake? Mom demanded, looking at the silent suitcases. She noticed me then, standing near the entrance to the sunroom, leaning casually against the doorframe. I wasn't sulking. I was waiting. You look well, considering, I noted. Mom didn't engage. She rushed toward the wall phone, presumably to call the car service. Did you reconfirm the SUV? They should have been here 10 minutes ago. They won't be, I said, pushing off the wall. I canceled it. She spun around, her eyes wide with initial disbelief, then fury. You what? Are you out of your mind? We have a flight in 4 hours. An hour and 20 minutes ago, I received a confirmation from you, I said, looking directly at Maya, that my passport had been intentionally damaged. And one from you, Mother, that the trip would be better without me. I walked slowly towards the kitchen island, picking up a single laminated card I had placed there. It was a mock boarding pass. The $14,000 trip, I continued, my voice gaining a low, dangerous clarity, was contingent on everyone departing on time, ready, and functional. I was rendered non-functional, and my absence was celebrated. Maya stepped forward, a smug, angry sneer replacing her earlier amusement. So what, you thought we'd cry and stay home? We'll take a cab. We'll call the driver, we'll give him a bonus, and we'll still make it. No, you won't, I replied, holding up the laminated card. Because that trip, that beautiful, expensive, exclusive thing, that was already mine. Mom, usually the picture of composure, was starting to unravel. She looked past me, frantically searching for her purse, her wallet, the keys to her safe deposit box. Where is my wallet? Where are the keys? Right here, I said, tapping my jacket pocket. The wallet, the spare key, the travel documents, the passports, except mine, which you destroyed. They are all safe. They are bolted into the utility closet. You see, the moment you chose to exclude me with malice, I was forced to secure my investment. Your investment. You didn't pay for anything, Maya yelled. I smiled, a slow, genuine smile that must have chilled them both to the bone. This was the thrill. This was the taste of control. I didn't pay for the vacation, no, I conceded. But I paid for the house. The house, and everything inside it, including your ability to leave it. 2 weeks ago, I finalized the legal ownership transfer. That wasn't just my name added to the deed. The deed was quietly, cleanly transferred to me. Their faces were masterpieces of horror and denial. Mom's mouth worked soundlessly. That's impossible, she finally choked out. The paperwork, you needed our signatures. I did, I agreed pleasantly. Remember that stack of refinancing documents you rushed through last month? The ones you told me to initial quickly before the closing window shut? The ones you didn't read? The legal description was confusing, but the transfer of ownership was perfectly clear. I threw the mock boarding pass onto the island. The text on it was simple. Departure, isolation. Destination, reassessment. I secured the house, I repeated, walking toward the grand staircase. I secured all the liquid assets, all the travel documentation, and the means of egress. The SUV is still running, by the way. The engine is on, keyless start. But the garage door motor? I removed the circuit board entirely. It's manual now, and I set the security bolts from the outside. You'll need a few hours and some serious tools to get it open. I started ascending the stairs slowly. Every step was a drumbeat in the climax I had orchestrated. The trip, I called down, watching their terrified, grasping faces. Mom was already yanking uselessly on the utility closet door. Maya was fumbling with her inert luggage lock. The trip is gone, but your vacation has just begun. The security system is set to stay mode and armed. All the windows are locked with a supplementary safety mechanism I installed this afternoon. The power is on, the internet is working, and the fridge is full. You are safe, you are secure, and you are alone. I reached the landing. The only person who is leaving this house today, I said, leaning over the banister, my voice now a whisper of pure, cold satisfaction, is me. I held up my hand, displaying a key on a plain, silver ring, the sole working key to the side gate access, and the single working key to a rental car parked 2 blocks away. You said this trip would be better without me. I agree. I took the $14,000 trip fund, the one linked to the joint account that is now solely under my name, and I bought myself a flight. A better one. A solo one. And guess what? My passport, the one your daughter hit and broke. That was actually just an old, expired one I kept for a placeholder. My real valid passport is in my pocket. You never even looked closely. I paused, letting the full weight of the deception and the resulting power imbalance crash down on them. Enjoy your 2-week staycation. It's better this way, right? With a final thrilling click of the lock at the top of the stairs, I sealed the master suite behind me. I didn't need anything from the house. All my essentials, the key, the passport, the new credit card with the trip money, the single small carry-on bag, were already secured in the side street rental. I walked through the silent master bedroom, past the enormous walk-in closet they had always mocked me for using, and exited through the small emergency window I had rigged to open quietly. I dropped lightly onto the soft landscaping below, pulled the small window shut with a soft click, and started walking toward the waiting car. The only sound breaking the evening stillness was a muffled, distant scream from inside the house, a sound of pure, unadulterated loss. The kind of sound that, to me, felt like the perfect validation. It was indeed better this way. And the feeling as I drove away from the secured, silenced mansion was intoxicating. It was the best kind of thrill, the solitude of victory. The heavy rental car door closed with a quiet thunk, a sound of finality that the front door of the mansion had failed to produce. I didn't rush. The timeline was precise, calculated. I started the car, pulled away from the curb 2 blocks from the house, and merged onto the main road with meticulous obedience to the speed limit. Haste would imply panic, and I had no panic left in me, only a profound, steady calm. The darkness of the evening was a comforting blanket, making the car a perfect, moving sanctuary. I glanced at the small clock on the dashboard, 7:15 p.m. Their flight to the Maldives was at 11:30 p.m. They had missed the latest check-in window they could reasonably hope for, even in a cab. Now they were on an immovable clock. Every minute I drove away was a minute stolen from their $14,000 fantasy. The feeling was not triumph, not exactly. Triumph is loud and momentary. This was exultation, a deep, settling satisfaction that felt less like a victory and more like an existential correction. I was restoring balance to a life defined by imbalance. My hand rested on the small, smooth leather of my passport wallet. The real one. The one they never asked to see, never cared enough to scrutinize. They had always assumed I was incompetent, disorganized, unable to keep track of important things, just as they assumed I was unable to understand their financial maneuvers, their casual cruelties, or the fine print on a deed transfer. Their arrogance had been my greatest tool, the contained panic as I drove. I allowed myself to briefly imagine the scene I had left behind, filtering it through the security system's audio logs I would review later. The muffled scream I'd heard on departure would have subsided into a vicious, low-pitched argument. Mom would have abandoned the utility closet, her expensive clothes discarded. She would be standing over the kitchen island, staring at the laminated mock boarding pass. Departure, isolation. Destination, reassessment. She would have snatched up her phone, her expensive, new, unlocked phone, only to find that while the Wi-Fi was live, the network priority had been reset. Only encrypted internal local network traffic was permitted. No outgoing calls, no data. Her sophisticated technology, a symbol of her wealth and connection, had become a decorative brick. The landline, Maya. "Call the police! Call Richard, the lawyer!" I could hear her voice, raw and desperate. Maya, frantic, would be at the wall phone, frantically dialing 911, but the system I installed didn't block emergency services. It merely rerouted it. Click. Buzz. "You have reached the System Maintenance Center. All external services are currently undergoing maintenance. Please hang up and wait for the next scheduled service window." A polite, pre-recorded male voice, calm, automated, and utterly useless. A wall built not of steel, but of automated apathy. They would realize the chilling genius of the trap. The house was perfectly safe. They weren't being attacked. They were being protected. The security system was on stay mode. The cameras were recording. The lights were functioning. The refrigerator was full of their expensive organic groceries. They were simply isolated, contained, and stripped of the one thing they valued above all else: mobility and prestige. The investment of a lifetime. My foot pressed the accelerator, taking me onto the airport access highway. The city lights blurred, but my focus remained needle-sharp, anchored in years of quiet resentment. The $14,000 wasn't just vacation money. It was the culmination of 2 decades of being their convenient truth. My father had left the house to us jointly, a fact Mom and Maya had perpetually treated as an administrative error. Every minor chore I performed, every utility bill I quietly managed, every time I covered an emergency expense, I was accruing silent equity. They had leveraged my trustworthiness, my financial acumen, against me, always knowing I would never truly rock the boat. They had simply forgotten that competence can also be weaponized. The refinancing documents were the beautiful climax of the intellectual game. It was a classic misdirection, burying a clear quitclaim deed and transfer of ownership addendum inside hundreds of pages of tedious mortgage restructuring paperwork. I remembered Mom's impatient wave of the hand as she told me, "Just sign it. You know I trust you to manage the details." "I have to call the travel agent." I was the detail they never managed. I was the financial anchor they relied on but never acknowledged. The transfer wasn't theft. It was the legal, notarized cashing in of my emotional, intellectual, and financial labor. The house was now legally and morally mine. As the airport signage flashed overhead, International Departures Terminal A, I thought of Maya's text. Ops, I hit it, my bad. The casualness of destroying a key piece of my life, the sheer disdain. That text was the gift. It shifted the plan from a financial maneuver to a justified act of self-preservation. It was the moment they confirmed their exclusion was malicious, not accidental. I pulled into the designated rental car drop-off, the process streamlined and contactless. My tiny carry-on bag, containing little more than 3 changes of clothes, a book, and my documents, felt light, unburdened. Unlike their 4 inert electronically locked behemoths, my life was now simple, mobile, and completely my own. I stepped onto the terminal sidewalk. The air felt cleaner, lighter. A new kind of oxygen. I was not fleeing. I was launching, checking my phone one last time. I saw a flurry of failed text messages from Mom, jumbled, confused, and finally, desperately accusatory. I tapped a pre-written single-word reply, waited for the sent confirmation, and then, with a final gesture of total separation, I initiated the remote script. Deactivate all home smart locks and security protocols for a 120-second window, and then permanently sever the house's connection to the main internet router. They would have exactly 2 minutes of open locks. Just enough time to realize they were free to go where they wanted. The running SUV in the garage, the side gate, but the damage was already done. The luggage was useless, the money was gone, the travel documents were locked away, and the airport check-in was irrevocably closed. They would be able to leave the building, but they would be trapped in the neighborhood, stranded, alone. I powered down the phone, slipped it into the bag, and walked toward the gate for my 9:45 p.m. flight. I was heading to a different continent, with my own ticket, my own funds, and the exquisite knowledge that I had traded $14,000 worth of being tolerated for a lifetime of being free. The greatest thrill of all was knowing the vacation wasn't just better without me. It was impossible without me. The hour of reckoning, inside the secured house, the situation had deteriorated into a volatile mix of panic and physical exertion. The clock on the kitchen microwave, 10:10 p.m., was a relentless countdown to an impossibility. Mom and Maya had moved from screaming to labor. They had finally managed to force open the front door using the main key, only to find the external deadbolt, the one I had silently modified, had jammed, leaving them a 2-inch gap and a mangled key. This failed attempt cost them 30 minutes and scraped knuckles, proving they were physical prisoners of the home's reinforced structure. Their focus had shifted to the garage. The running SUV was a siren song of freedom, visible through the reinforced glass of the utility door. We have to get that door open, Maya. We can take the car, we can still drive to a different airport, maybe catch the red-eye out of Chicago. He can't have thought of everything, Mom panted, covered in dust from ripping apart the utility closet. The small bolted safes remained impregnable, a mockery of their efforts. He took the circuit board, Mom. He said he took the circuit board. Maya was weeping, her voice a high, thin wail, her perfect airport makeup streaked. She was hitting her inert luggage, the one containing her favorite shoes, in impotent rage. He lied about the passport. He lied about the deed. He lied about the Uber. He's a liar, Maya. He didn't take a circuit board. He just cut the power. There's a manual release lever. There has to be one. They found it. The red emergency pull cord, designed for power outages. Mom yanked it with the full force of her terror. The cord snapped with a brittle crack, releasing nothing. I had replaced the original steel cable with a cheap nylon rope, easily broken. Just another small, insignificant sabotage in a symphony of destruction. Then, at 10:15 p.m., the smart home chimed. The gentle musical tone of the security system disengaging, system disarmed. Welcome home. The sound, usually a comforting greeting, felt like a celestial joke. What was that? Maya whispered, frozen. Mom rushed to the front door, pushing against the now unlocked deadbolt. It gave way. The front of the house was open. The back door, the sliding glass doors, all unlocked. He did it. He let us out. He's going to wait until we file a report. He's just trying to avoid a police charge. Mom shrieked, adrenaline spiking. Come on, the car. They flew to the utility door. Mom wrestled with the manual lock on the SUV. She threw the SUV into reverse, the tires spinning uselessly on the cement. The garage door, heavy and manual, was completely blocked by the security bolts I had quietly engaged from the outside. Heavy, old-school industrial bolts that required a socket wrench and 2 hands to retract. The running SUV was trapped in a box. They ran outside, finally free of the house. They could breathe the night air. They stood on the manicured lawn, looking at the silent street, the quiet, wealthy neighborhood. Okay, we walk, we run. We'll get a neighbor, Mom gasped, pointing down the street toward the nearest visible light. Just then, the second chime rang out. Louder, more emphatic. Internet connection failed. All non-essential systems offline. The lights in the house flickered, the garage door light died, and the entire block went completely silent as the emergency power management system kicked in and the main router connection was severed. The smart locks were dead. They were free of the building. But the neighborhood was a vast, dark, silent expanse, and they were without transportation, identification, or the ability to call for help. They looked at each other, covered in sweat and grime, standing alone under the soft, mocking glow of a suburban street lamp. The silence was overwhelming, a deep, echoing void that swallowed their last frantic hopes. The $14,000 trip was not just gone. It was replaced by this cold, empty landscape, and then a notification arrived on the tablet Maya was clutching, the one that had only just regained a weak, temporary network signal from a distant, open Wi-Fi network. It was a transfer receipt from the bank. Transfer complete, $14,000, Nodar.